Halligan, I can't even say the word, journalist and economist. How are you, sir? Good morning. Oh, hold.
Sorry about that, Jeremy.
That's like the bloke. Have you ever seen that clip where the bloke goes, "Go away, children," and then he starts expleting? Liam Halligan was having a wee, ladies and gentlemen. Were you having a...
I was actually just turning the coffee off.
Oh, well, that sort of deflated the fact that I built you up to be this incredibly...
There you go. Got my orange juice.
Oh, have you? That's not very good for you, then. Mate, good morning, welcome. We've been talking about Rachel Thieves this morning and her... I mean, look, I'm old school, right? I know that the Labour Party essentially has one policy at the end of the day. You can dress it up how you want, but in the end they just tax everybody who is aspirational or has built a business or has some savings, and that's what's going to happen very soon. I mean, the woman who said, "I'm not going to tax anybody," is now freely admitting she's going to tax everybody, including the middle classes, Liam.
She is. You remember after her budget last October, Jeremy, she said she literally said it many times, "This is a once in a parliament budget. I'm not going to have to come back for more taxation. We're fixing the foundations of the economy," remember that, by raising taxes by 40 billion quid and raising borrowing by 30 billion quid. These are annual numbers. That's the biggest tax raising budget in over a quarter of a century. You've got to go all the way back to 1993. And yet it's clear now, she's been telling The Guardian, she's been telling Sky News that she is going to have to raise taxes again in the budget on November the 26th. I think that last October's budget was largely about taxing businesses, even though businesses then, surprise, surprise, passed those costs on to consumers in the shops. That's why we've had much, much higher inflation in this country than the other G7 economies, than the other advanced economies. We've seen that again today. Our inflation's at 3.8%. The Eurozone average is more like 2.5%. And I think this time, on November the 26th, she's going to come not so much for business, but for wealthier individuals with all kinds of taxation. But again, those taxes will end up being passed on to consumers in prices. That's just how the economy works. And we've seen, Jeremy, in the last few days, even though immigration's been such a big part of the news lately, with, I think, the Overton window on that shifting very much and it becoming much more to the fore, it's still the cost of living which is at the top of consumer concerns. The cost of living. Everyone knows you go into the supermarket these days and you buy a few bits and you've dropped 100 quid.
Absolutely.
And you've got very little to show for it.
My wife and I have this standing joke. I've got to grab a couple of things from the supermarket. You're right, 60, 80, 100 quid. I don't know how people cope. The thing for me is, and you're an economist, I opened when we spoke and said that, to me, the Labour Party's only ever had one theory, which is to promise their union mates pay rises, to promise to make everything fantastic, so they throw money out that they haven't gone. In the old days, they printed it and inflation was at 30%, or they go hand in hand, cap in hand to the IMF, which is going to happen. Do you think, a lot's been made about this woman, is she as incompetent as many people say, in your opinion, as an economist? Because to me, you just said, it's the biggest cock-up, really, financially. What was it? UK borrowing reached a 5-year high. In September, we borrowed another 20.2 billion quid. Does she know what she's doing, Liam? Genuinely.
Yeah, now of that 20-odd billion quid that we borrowed in September alone, 20 billion quid, it's the equivalent of 3p on the basic rate of income tax. The income you'd get if you increased the basic rate of income tax by 3p, the income you'd get over the entire year. That's 20 billion quid. It's a huge amount of money. And of that 20 billion quid that we borrowed in the single month of September, the highest September borrowing on record, with the sole exception of the height of the COVID lockdown, when, of course, the economy was shut down, but the government was still spending like billio. Of that 20-odd billion quid she borrowed, 10 billion of that, roughly, was spent on interest on debt that the government already has.
So 120 billion pounds a year we're going to have to borrow to pay debt on the interest on the debts that we've got without moving the debt. So I ask you again, is she as rubbish at her job as people say? You're an economist, yes or no?
So the inheritance she got from the Tories was bad. Taxation was already at a 70-year high. You have to be fair and recognise that.
Yes.
We already had a serious fiscal problem when she came in. The Tories would say that's because of again, the ridiculous lockdown that we had during COVID. But with the best will in the world, she's made the situation worse because she did come in straight away. She pretended there was a black hole that there wasn't. Everybody could see the public finances. She did a massive bung to her mates in trade unions through big public sector pay increases. Getting together with Ed Miliband, she funded a load of very spurious net zero schemes, which are the reason why our energy costs in the UK are the highest in the developed world, which feeds into inflation. So she has made the situation worse. And now she's facing calls from economists, but also from business leaders, that if she tries to address the shortfall in the national accounts by simply raising taxes left, right, and centre, she will hammer the economy, she will throttle growth, she will thwart enterprise and commerce. And that is what is happening. We've seen growth very sluggish in the UK. We've seen tax revenues very, very weak. You know, she increased the capital gains tax rate last October. We got less capital gains tax, obviously, because people aren't selling things. She's stamp duty is very, very high.
There's not an awful
housing market.
I'm always keen to try and help people get up in the morning and think, oh, do you know what? But there's not a lot of great news. And you know, we had today, and we've got to be quick, but we had today, inflation stayed at 3.8%. I mean, you might say that I agree with you, she didn't inherit brilliance, but she's certainly taken us backwards. And I think the warning to almost everybody, I mean, you said it right. Last time was NI on small businesses. I've got mates who run restaurants. There's no point in them even having a business anymore. We've been sold a complete dummy on council tax, on energy prices, and she seems to be floundering, and we'll end up to our eyes in debt. And I think where we're at in this country is a seminal moment politically, because I think the British people are also going, so let me get this right. They've done that, then this lot have done that. That's why I think seismic change is on the way. I will forever play that clip of you not being there but turning the coffee machine off. Liam Halligan, thank you so much indeed for being on Morning Glory. Right, 03